welcome back to the Real Estate Huddle, where today we're on episode 98, and we're going to be talking about why Denver is actually number one in the country in all U.S. markets as far as price slashes goes. So there are prices being cut, did you know, on 1 out of every 3 homes in our Denver market right now. And if you own a home, that's not good news. If you don't own a home, it's great news. And so it's a completely mixed conversation. And so depending on whichever side you're on or not on, you will have a lot of opinions about this. And so we totally get it, but we just want to have a conversation of why this is happening and help uncover some of the data behind it.
So quick input, owning a home, not a bad thing. If you're selling a home, that's it.
Yeah,
Right.
It only matters when you're making the transaction, right? And when you're riding the roller coaster, you're fine. But when you get on or off, that's when the transition happens. So, and that's when things matter more. Yep. So, we kind of looked at some of the data to rank Denver in comparison to everybody else. And Denver, 36.8% of Denver listings had a price cut. So that is the highest in the nation. Now, that's a large number, but the folks right behind us are actually really close as well. So other top markets, Phoenix, Arizona was 36.6, so 0.2% difference. So we're right in line with what Phoenix has seen. Raleigh, North Carolina, 35.2% of the listings had price cuts, and then Tampa, Florida, 34.9. So
all of those markets were hotter than a tiki torch for 10 years.
Yes.
Right?
Just blazing through.
Yeah.
Tiki torch, bonfire, what else?
It's 30 minutes.
Some of the hottest markets in the country are now some of the coolest markets in the country.
So, and that makes sense, right? So everybody's used to, so when you're driving on the freeway and you're going 100 miles an hour or the speed limit, and then you get off and go to a 30 mile an hour residential road, it feels like you're standing still, right? Mm-hmm. So it takes a while to recalibrate yourself to that. And that's what I think you're seeing there is a lot of people are used to when we have 1,200 homes on the market and you get 15 offers, well, it's not the case anymore. Now you got to actually try. So, but again, if you were only hearing the news 4 years ago and you weren't getting on or off the roller coaster, now when you're trying to get on or off the roller coaster, you're calibrated back for 4 years ago and you haven't got an update. So sometimes you got to be educated. That's where you need to have a good agent. So
Totally. Yeah.
So some of the national trends, according to Fast Company's summary of Resi Club data, 25.6% of all U.S. homes, all the listings saw a price reduction in June of 2025. That was the highest share recorded from June since 2018. So perspective-wise, June in 2018, we had 18.1% of the listings saw reductions. June of 2024, 23.5%. And now in 2025 in June, they're saying 25.6% of the listings saw a price reduction on a nationwide scale.
So let's break that down. So there's more than, okay, so of the states, right, there's multiple major markets within these states, right? And here we've got Denver, we've got Fort Collins, we've got Colorado Springs. We have 3 in our state, right, that would be considered major markets. And so there's over 100 at least, right, in the country, probably between 100 and 200 markets, and Denver is number 1 for price cuts.
So
Let that simmer. That's crazy.
So, but I'm curious to see where Colorado Springs and like Fort Collins were playing on that market, because Colorado Springs was predicted to be one of the top 10 growth markets. Mm-hmm. So, but they are saying it is a lot slower for listings down there too.
Yeah.
So,
and we were keep in mind, I mean, back in the pandemic and before that, we were multiple times on Forbes, on Zillow's websites, on all of a ton of different sites. We were number 1 in growth, right? It was between us, Portland, Salt Lake City, Phoenix, some of those markets. We were competing for the number 1 spot for years. And now it's not just flipped a little bit, it's completely turned on its head.
Well, we'll talk about that in the next section, but that's also actually perfectly logical. Mm-hmm. Right? We scored the highest. We should be paying our dues the most.
We're gonna be having the biggest correction.
Which is what we're
what you're seeing now. So
It's got to correct itself somehow.
The law of gravity, is that what we're talking about?
Well, it goes up.
So so Denver was 1, Phoenix was number 2, Raleigh, North Carolina, Tampa, Florida, Dallas, Texas, Nashville, Tennessee, Salt Lake, Jacksonville, Florida, Austin, Texas, and then San Antonio, Texas. That make up the top 10. And San Antonio was 30.5%, and we're at 36.8. So
Top 10 are all over 30, the average is 25, so it isn't that spread out.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's pretty consistent across the nation that you're seeing a quarter to a third of the homes taking a price reduction. So
So here's the other thing, though. Like, we look at our numbers year over year in the last 12 months. Denver's only down 1% on single family homes as far as like appreciation goes, right? We're depreciated at 1%. That's not a huge adjustment. Condos and townhomes have depreciated 7% almost. So we've had, more movement there, but being the number one in price cuts, but only going down 1% for detached single family homes. How do you explain that?
pretty good value because it's still a supply and demand, right? So everybody wants to be here. There is the demand. So, but we have other things. The condo and townhouse market are getting pushed because of insurance deductibles and people being able to qualify. So that's adversely impacting that entire market right now.
Yeah.
So
I agree. Taxes and insurance have definitely increased or decreased affordability.
And the HOAs in those units are
hurting.
like astronomical.
Same thing, right? Because
Yeah.
they rolled in.
Yeah. But it has to be somehow, like you alluded to earlier, like there has to be some kind of like expectations for seller difference between the people in Denver and the people in other markets, right? Like Denver, I think for the longest time, we never went down, right? And we haven't. Like other than the Great Recession and the Great Depression, we don't go down in a year typically. And so I think there's that mindset of like, my home hasn't corrected. Like I'm still up here. Right. And even from the pandemic levels, and buyers are over here going, why do you think your home's worth 40% more than what it is? Or they think that there should be a major correction, people that aren't in homes right now. And people that are in homes are going, no, it doesn't happen here. It just
Well,
doesn't
but
happen.
we're part of the reason or the problem or the solution because we're looking at the comps and the comps tell us something. So we're reacting to the change in the market to come back because for 3 years, we've been plotting
Well,
that growth.
I mean, it's been longer than 3 years, honestly. I mean, Denver's had it good for decades. To
Yeah.
be quite honest, like we've never really had too much of a downturn outside of 2008. But there were even some counties in Denver that weren't super affected by the crash of
So
2008.
even the bad 2008 time period in Denver, you're seeing 10 to 20% reductions here, where I came from a market that was a 50% reduction was good. Wow. So
Yeah. So we've had I think that's the context is we've had such a long run of appreciation. Now we're kind of that silver spoon mentality where it's like we're entitled to our appreciation now, and that's what I want. And now that they're not getting it, sellers are having a kind of a harder time letting go of what they think they have when in reality they don't, because we're actually starting to see a market correction in Denver, rightfully so, because it's been needed for a while.
Well, I think we've had a very, there's other economic factors involved as well, like as far as the jobs market. It just shows me that we have a very strong jobs market
So
if we've been able to grow that much.
Let's segue because this is what we're going to talk about in the next section here.
Yeah.
So why is Denver leading the pack? So the first one, we got 4 points here, but the first one is affordability challenges, and that's driven by that growth period where we had more workers who could work at home, making us that much more desirable. Of course, our quality of life, which we talk about all the time, that's a big driver. Investors scooping it up. And back then we had low supply, right? So we drove the prices up. Money was cheap, right? So that's not the case now. So mortgage we spend a lot of time talking about that, but that's the biggest driver. Like, I'm being loose when I say this, but people who didn't want to sell because they love the 3% mortgage, right? You had a couple kids, I got to move, right? So the inventory has preceded the buyers who are still looking at those rates saying, I just can't afford that. So that's the second point is buyer pushback. They can't reconcile the cost yet, right? Even with what we'll talk about in another section about the leverage that these buyers have. They're still looking at the math, and they can only stretch their budget so far. The negotiation power of the buyers, again, I don't want to steal the next section, right? But the buyers have a lot of leverage here, and that's driving the price down because sellers want to move, and they've got to accede to that leverage. Inventory shift. So homes are just sitting longer, right? So that's slower pace. What do? You're going to lower price, try to find it. Sellers feeling more pressure to adjust just to be competitive, right? Again, we thought 2 months ago we were pricing our homes properly, yet we're still lowering them 2, sometimes 3 times, because the market is, we got to go find it. And the last point here is psychological, right? Sellers are seeing others cut their prices. They are starting to panic, if that's the right word, leading to ripple effect across all the neighborhoods, bringing prices down a little bit.
Yeah, and then the other thing is if you've got one seller in a neighborhood that is more motivated than everybody else, that undercutting or that lower price or that huge concession impacts all of those immediate sales because everyone is looking at those with a microscope.
Yeah, we haven't talked about it. I don't know where it's going to come up, maybe when we talk about sellers, but there are real situations where folks are just taking the home off the market and they're going to rent because they probably rightly believe in 18 months the market's going to be different, right? So I'd rather just cash flow it a little bit now and try my hand again in 18 months and maybe I get that 50 grand back.
Yeah. Well, and days on market are up, to 43 is the average right now. So there's actually time for price cuts, right? Before we didn't even have time for them. And they sold so fast. And it's just the supply and demand was so tilted that way. But yeah, the inventory shift, to just put it in perspective, has gone from 6,000 homes in spring of last year to 14,000 homes, and so that's a huge swing. More than double will change a market instantly.
Well, just look at when things were really busy and there was low inventory, that coming soon period, you were the most popular person in the world having a listing where you had 7 days of previews for people to think about, oh, what is this going to look like? Oh, there's another one coming. And they're like lined up, ready to go. Showings were all scheduled. So you literally just told your sellers, hey, your weekend trip to the mountains, just go book that now because it's going to be a revolving door at your house.
Yeah.
But now 43 days, you're not going to give that expectation, right? You got to kind of just plan ahead and take them as they come for showings.
Yeah.
So.
Coming soon has less impact. Now we're calling agents like, we can get in early, right?
Yeah.
Like, all right, that's fine.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks.
Yeah, definitely. Well, interesting. And it's done crazy things for buyers.
Yes, I think that's the kind of what this all comes down to is what does this mean for both buyers and sellers? For buyers, the two most valuable things you gain from this are time and money. So because we have so much inventory that's popping up on the market because it's taking so long to sell because of whatever factors there are, you have time to figure it out compared to what we had just a couple years ago where it was like you make a decision now or you don't make the decision at all. And it's like all pedal, no brakes type mentality. Whereas now it's you can be methodical about it because most likely you're going to have one very similar to it just down the road or, multiple homes just within one neighborhood that you can look at and choose from. And because we were averaging 43 days on market, you've got time. And the other part is the money part, right? So we have, what did we just say at the very beginning? We're 1 in 3 homes are price cutting, right? That's just more money back in your pocket. And then on top of that, when you go with an agent that actually understands the market, like ourselves, you have even more power to negotiate. And we have that power to negotiate on your behalf so long as you're not super emotional about it. So if you can stay level-headed, that's just going to put more money back in your pocket and maybe even some more time as far as like getting ready to move and getting more whatever. So not only for the initial negotiation, but when it comes to like the inspection and stuff like that, these sellers do not want to go back on the market. So when you do get under contract and you do get that price cut that you wanted on the initial negotiation, now we have our inspection. Okay, so the inspection is going to be awesome. It's going to be an emotional low, but we can hopefully turn it into an emotional high because the sellers don't want to go back on the market, which means they're probably more willing to negotiate to address the things that you want addressed on that home after the inspection report comes out. So you have so much power as a buyer in this market. And I hate to say that when our next subject is the sellers, but unfortunately, that's just how the markets work, right? It's a buyer's market or it's a seller's market. And right now, it is definitely a buyer's market, regardless of what the rates look like. So we have inventory on our side. We have the fact that because of the inventory so high, the sellers are selling a house takes a lot longer, 43 days on average. It is the perfect storm for buyers.
Can I chime in? So
Yeah,
this
please.
client Lynn and I are working with, and you touched on his situation exactly. He knows the neighborhood very well because he rents adjacent to it. He's got a friend in this neighborhood. There are 4 homes in this neighborhood, and they're not exactly the same house, square footage and different. But we have been watching these 4 homes now for 3 weeks, and he's seen them all come, and he's a very thoughtful guy, very well read. And he's like, I don't think we're done yet. And he is patient enough that when one does sell, he'll just look at that as a new data point to say, well, maybe I should stop and get back in, or maybe it'll prove him right. But it's a really perfect storm in this little community with this patient buyer. And God bless him. I hope we get a smoking deal.
Here's a few pro tips too, and I mentioned it briefly, but the emotional side of buying, especially for first-time home buyers, can be really high. It can be a super emotional process. It can be really exhausting and really tiring. If you can somehow train yourself or wire yourself to understand that if it doesn't work out, it's okay. It's awesome. I've had a couple transactions this year where we've submitted an offer that we thought was pretty good. The buyers hated it, or the sellers hated it. And they're like, we're just going to choose not even to respond. And my buyers were smart enough to say, that's okay. We'll
Keep your
move on to the
walkaway
next
power.
one.
Yeah.
We'll move on to the next one. And guess what happened? We're like, adios. We're on to the next one. And a couple days later, they come crawling back. And they're like, hey, would you think about entertaining that offer again? We're like, we're actually under contract on another one. So sorry.
Strike 3.
Your sellers decided to play that entitlement game just like we were talking about.
Yep.
They thought they were worth that much, and they weren't. We actually just bought a house just a couple streets over at the price that we offered you guys. So tough luck. I mean, that's just so play the game. Don't play on your emotions. Play the game as much as you can because it'll pay off way better for you in the long run.
Yeah, always maintain your walkaway power.
Yeah.
Being able to have that makes you a lot stronger in the
And it makes our
negotiation.
job as realtors so much easier, especially when delivering the crappy news of like, hey, they didn't take your offer.
Yeah.
Here's what we would advise you to do. But
So I look at the market now as kind of like when you're trying to buy a car during COVID versus trying to buy a car now. So, right, it's easier to see the inventory on a dealer's lot. So there was times where you had to pre-order a car, you had to pay $20,000 over MSRP. You didn't get to pick any of your options, and that was the car that you were going to get. If you wanted this car, it was whatever, orange, blue, yellow, purple, it didn't matter. Like that was what you were going to get, and you didn't have much choice in the matter. That was buying the home when it was a seller's market and low inventory. Now, it's kind of like the old days. You can go to the dealership, and there's multiple cars on the lot, and you go, I like this one, but I really want it in blue. So you drive the white one, and then they get you a blue one, right? You have that opportunity now. So that's kind of the same mentality is you can just switch things around, but it's easier to visualize because it's on a scale that people can see all of the inventory physically there. Yeah. And you're seeing prices. I watched the price for each sale car, and you can see under MSRP versus over MSRP. And there's a lot of them that are going under MSRP now where, for years it was all over. So they're kind of trending along the same lines. But
being a buyer right now, it's a good time for the realtor and the buyer, quite honestly. Like, all my buyers, we've had some good times this year.
Poise is a big word.
Yeah.
I when I bought my first house, I remember we offered on a place that was like $325, and I think I gave them an offer at like $305 and asked for some closing costs, and it was like $10,000 in closing costs or something like that. And they came back with a counter that was like I think it was like $322 or something. It was like a lame counter, and I was pissed. I'd never realized, because I had helped other people early on in my career, but I had helped a lot of other people do this without getting so emotional. And then when that happened, I was so emotional. I was so frustrated. I was like, these people not understand the market. This was during the Great Recession, right? Like at the tail end of it, like 2012. I was like, why would they do that? Like they're coming back and just like, are they trying to push me away or what? And I was getting antsy, and I wanted to like knee jerk reaction come back to them and say, well, what about this? And then like keep the negotiation going. And my dad, who's my mentor, right, in the business, was like, hey, show some poise. Just sit on it. Sit on it for a
Be
second.
like Fonzie.
Let them sleep on their decision and then come back tomorrow.
Come back at
Right.
the last
Yep.
minute.
And
just like, well,
yeah, and sometimes like sellers will send a counter and then they'll regret it if you let them sit on their decision for a little while. So it's like there's definitely some poise there. If you can be a buyer that's very selective and just wait for the right deal to come around, it probably will right now. Where in other markets it wouldn't.
Yep.
Literally, like we've seen other markets where it's just not possible. So that's kind of what you see on the seller side or on the buyer side of things. But sellers have a completely different experience right now.
Yeah, and obviously it's not as great of a time. Obviously it's not as great of a time for sellers right now as it is for buyers, but there are a few things that we can do to make it easier on the seller and maybe make the process a little bit smoother. First, we need to price realistically from the start. I know that selling is also an emotional process, but unfortunately, you just kind of have to choose between getting your exact number or if you want to keep playing this game and be on the market for longer, or if you want to sell your home.
And I think that's like the sellers that do that price correctly from the start, they end up walking away with more money. That's the
Yeah.
crazy thing, right? Is like
And
the
quite
more
honestly-
real you get with your price, the more money you get.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
And much happier
Yeah.
with the whole process.
Yeah.
It's
smoother.
It's not as annoying as it
So
would have
much
been.
better.
And the other thing is like we're seeing with sellers that there's homes that show average and then there's homes that show above average. And if you put that work with a good agent, put in that extra effort and it shows really well, staging, updates and whatever else. If you do that punch list and do that, we're seeing, even in this market, we're seeing competitive offers and over asking price happen. So it can happen. You just have to work with the right person to kind of line everything up. So just the days of just putting a sign on the yard and just taking the tickets as a revolving door is not there anymore. So you actually have to put the effort into it, which is hard if you're going to be on the market for 43 days. But if you take that extra time ahead of time and be more methodical about it, you're going to be better off.
100%.
Yeah, and I know everyone wants to be the exception, but unfortunately that's not the case, and overpricing will normally lead to a longer time on market in this market and inevitable price cuts. We were just looking at a home earlier in our meeting actually that was on the market for 72 days because of high pricing. So yeah, definitely just need to price realistically, and I think the last thing would just be the importance of working with an agent who understands the market data and trends so that they are setting you up for success. And just not making you have to do those price cuts or be on the market for 70 days, that kind of thing.
But Gabby, my home is the exception. I have a wall
No,
where
it's not.
we've penciled in the height of all of our grandkids. And also, besides that, like we use premium Sherwin-Williams paint when we painted our house. And the sun faces our house a little different. We get shadows in the afternoon. And everybody understands why they should pay more for my house.
I love that for you.
Hold on. You have grandkids?
No, I don't. I do have an almost 16-year-old, though.
Here's another pro tip. When we come into these listing presentations as agents, we have done a lot of homework and a lot of a lot of studying in your neighborhoods. If we aren't experts in it already, we have just become the expert in that neighborhood. And so when we come to you saying, hey, this is what we think is going to sell, this is what the price of your home should be, I would highly recommend you take that very seriously, because yes, you may have this like sentimental investment into your home, but the market doesn't care. Like that's what it comes down to. No one cares about that. And as much as I agree with you that you have your markings on your trim and of your grandkids and stuff, Sally and Jim don't care. So
They're just going to have to paint over it.
yeah, they're going to paint over it, or heaven forbid, or not heaven forbid, but I actually had buyers. It's funny. We had buyers that went through the house and saw that exact thing. Like, why don't we just rip that off and give it to them? They can take it to their next house. It's like, he's like, I've got guys who can put new trim on there, no problem.
That's actually what I did when
It's
I
like,
bought
that's
mine.
really kind of you. But I mean, overall, it's just the market can be really forgiving, but it can also be really unforgiving. And this is one of those moments where just really take into consideration what your agents are telling you, because we've done the homework. We know what'll sell. And quite honestly, even with that price that we give you in a market like this, you're probably still going to have to make price adjustments. That's just the reality of it. We try to give you the most aggressive one possible and try to get you the one that we think is going to sell right off the bat. Sometimes it just doesn't always work that way.
But Spencer, but I have quarter drapes that match throughout my whole house.
I understand, but Landon,
He's on
I'm going
a
to tell
roll
you.
over there.
I'm going to tell you this because I love you. Shut up, and no one cares.
Hey, whoa. But what about my Anderson storm door?
Anderson's nice, and I'll give you that
People
one.
care
That one's
about
pretty
that.
good. That's a good storm door. However,
something
no
where
one
it's-
pays you back for windows or storm doors. Let's be clear about that as well. You
But I
get
got
no
solar.
money back on that one.
We were talking.
I didn't tell you to
earlier-
do that, Landon.
We were talking earlier about kind of some of the emotional, attachment we have as sellers agents to pricing. And part of the conversations I've been having is they're saying, but we've come down so much.
Yeah.
To which I'm saying, because you were priced wrong, so I don't really want to discount that. Our job is to represent our buyers in this case to get the best price. So that's another example of emotion on the seller agent side.
We're competing with 13,000 homes in our market right now. You have to understand that. Like, we have more inventory than we've had since what, 2011?
Yeah.
Is that the number still?
2012.
2012. So we are in a completely different market than we've ever been in the past decade. So it's just a matter of really coming to the table. I'm not saying you need to be humble about it, but just come with understanding of like, this is not the same. If we want to sell our house, we're going to have to sacrifice somewhere, because guess what? On the buy side, you're probably going to wash it out anyway.
Yep.
You're going to save some money on the buy side. It's all going to be okay. You're not losing anything. You probably still have a bunch of equity unless you bought your house last year.
Yeah.
In that case, we can talk. But
But you got to see too, like, I mean, I'm looking at it like 2/3 of our market is actually pricing their home correctly.
Yeah.
If it's selling.
yeah,
Right?
one out of every three.
even though we're the
Right.
worst in the
I've
country,
been
like-
trying to give you kudos this whole podcast because I
You
think
just put it in the dirt, Landon.
because I don't remember were we on camera when we were talking about this? We rode it up, right? We were part of that growth, so it's taken us a little while to
Yeah.
relearn pricing. Some agents are doing a hell of a lot better. So I just think that you, as one example of a guy who does a lot of listings, I bet you're doing a heck of a lot better now than we were back in June.
Yeah.
That's just learning. So not everyone's learning, but
Yeah.
2/3 we're doing pretty good.
Ever-changing market, that's for sure. Yep. So, yeah, no, just in closing, Denver's market is absolutely adjusting after a decade of growth with almost double-digit growth every year. It's not sustainable for that to continue forever. And then we had 33% in 2 years during the pandemic after that 10-year span. So it's been pretty incredible, our run that we've been on, but obviously now, buyers are pushing back and that's happening. So for buyers, patience and poise. For sellers, being strategic, very realistic with their pricing and working with a pro is a big deal. So if we can help you on either side, we would love to. And we're always never too busy to help. So our information is below. You can reach out if we can help you or anybody that you know to either get a great deal or protect as much equity as you can in a tough market if you're a seller. And thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next one.